What's up everybody, Teancum here with Sew Yeah Quilting. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how you make this Stepping Stones quilt. Let's get started. So as always, we're going to dive right on into this project, but before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about the fabric that we'll be using today. The quilt here behind me uses a jelly roll, so this is a jelly roll friendly project, and this is one of our exclusive batik jelly rolls, which you can pick up the kit for this down in the description below. And the fabric that we'll be using for our project or our tutorial today is called Playtime. This is a P&B jelly roll and it's a 30s print. So I absolutely love 30s. So this is gonna be a really fun project. So let's get into the cutting instructions. So the very first thing that I like to cut is I want to get all the background or these solids out of the way, which are 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares. Nothing complicated there. The next thing is it's time to open up our jelly roll, sort through our fabrics, pick the ones that we want, and then it's time to cut. I've got some pieces here. And you'll need a jelly roll that has duplicates of every fabric, okay? Which 99% of jelly rolls have that, so it's not a big deal. What you're gonna wanna do is I'm gonna cut these one by one, or if you like to, you can double stack them. So you just line them up like so. Or triple or quadruple or whatever you feel comfortable cutting. Now, you need 2 cuts of all the cuts that I'm going to say, okay? And we're gonna cut them together. The very first cut is 10.5 inches by the width of our jelly roll here. That is our first piece. I'm gonna set them aside here. Our next one is we want 2 8.5 inch strips here. So I'm gonna line this up here, make sure that's all lined up, and I'll cut my 8.5. The next thing that we're gonna need is 2 6.5 inch strips here, which I'm gonna hold this down, and I'll cut my 6.5s. We'll need 2 4.5s. And lastly, this is the only one that changes. We need 4 2.5 by 2.5s. I'll cut those right now. There's very little waste in this project, which I really like. I got those there, and I'm gonna cut one more. So out of each strip, that is the only waste here. Leave those aside, do a pillow or something like that, or do a matching pillow for this. It could get really fun there. But let me show you what it looks like now. So I got my 4 2.5 by 2.5s. Then I got a 2 4 by 4.5 by 2.5, so on and so forth. My 6.5, my 8.5, and my 10.5. Go ahead and make these cuts to every last piece of your jelly roll, and you'll use them to make the entire quilt. So it's a really easy project to do. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the rest of my pieces, and we'll be right back. So now that we got everything cut down, you can see I cut everything down here, and I've got them kind of randomized. So for instance, this is a red one, we've got a green one underneath, yellow, I've got a blue one underneath, just randomized a little bit. We're only paying attention to the block. Now everyone thinks that there's not a block here, this is actually a block project. So our block is right here. That's our block. When you put it together, it looks like a strip quilt. So this is a really easy project to make. Let me show you how you assemble this block. It's very easy to do. I'm gonna just move some fabric out of the way here. And what we're gonna wanna start off with is the longest piece, our 10.5 inch. We're gonna put that there, and we're gonna take one of our solids, and we're gonna put it right here. Now for the next one, we're going to grab one of our 2.5 by 2.5 colors. We're gonna set that in here. We're gonna grab one of our solids. I'm going to keep referring back to my solids here. And this is something that we did, you don't have to do this. As you can see here, I put the green, purple, the purple. You don't have to do that, okay? That's just something that I did personally, and I think it becomes a little bit more uniform, or you can make it scrappy, either way. But what I'll do is, I'll grab my 8.5 inch piece and put it right next to this one here. So far, so good. Our next thing is we're going to take one of our 4.5 inch pieces. And again guys, if you don't like your color choices, like I've got this light green next to my light blue, I'm gonna switch it out for the pink. I'm gonna put that down, my white square, And then, again, I want to keep things pretty uniform. I'm going to grab my 6.5 inch piece, lay it down like so, and we're going to continue this process. This time we're going to do it backwards, okay? So we got our 6.5 inch piece, we're going to lay it down, our white square, and then our 4.5 inch piece. From here, we're going to take our 8.5 inch piece, we're going to lay that down with our white square, and then our 2.5 inch block, which then leads us finally to our 10.5 inch square, or sorry, 10.5 inch strip, and our white block down at the bottom. That is the block. Very simple to do, just follow it step by step all the way through, and you're gonna make each block exactly the same. Make it scrappy, make it uniform, however you like it, it's gonna turn out to be a good project. But let me show you how you sew this together. We're gonna start off with our top layer here, right sides together, and we're going to sew this all the way down. Which will be our first piece. We're going to keep following all the way through. Got my 2.5 and my 2.5, line those guys up. Before I get any further, we're gonna iron all this, but I'm gonna sew everything first, okay? Now that we've got all of our strips sewn together, it's time to talk a little about ironing, okay? Before I take these on over to the ironing board, I just want to say one thing. Since we've got dark on both sides of this light square, when we iron, we need to make sure we're ironing both sides to the dark side. If not, you'll see the fabric or the color of the fabric peek through the white, and we don't want that, so be careful, make sure you iron these all like that. And what makes this a little bit easier is if you do it that way, the construction of it will be a little bit easier too, because you're not gonna fight your seams. So I'm gonna take this over to the ironing board and iron this thing completely out. So now that everything's ironed out really flat here, the one thing you have to make sure on, you have 1 point, right, per strip. We gotta make sure those line up. Don't focus on anything else. Focus on these points all lining up. Because if you do it right, you'll get this perfect line all the way down. Okay, you don't want a little bit off there. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take my first layer here and I'm gonna make sure they line up. Because if we're a little bit off on our ends, we can trim that up, we can make that work. But you can't make it work if the points are a little bit off, all right? So let's make sure we get that on track here. So let's open this thing up, and a perfect point. So we're gonna keep that one for sure. Moving on to the next one, I like to do things in sets of 2, so I'm gonna do 2, 2, and 2. Grab my next set here. Now, you can take a pin and pin this right here and make sure everything's good. The other trick that you can do, this little pro trick for you, is you can just give yourself a little 3 or 4 stitches right over the point there. And you can open this thing up and make sure you're on point and then sew your seam down. Something that I do kind of if I'm in a hurry or I just want to make sure and keep my points on point, then I do that little trick there. Especially on projects where all the points need to line up to get the effect that we're going for. I really like that little trick there. Then gives us our next one. Going down here to the final one. Perfect. Now we're gonna repeat the exact same steps. I'm gonna take these two, flip them right on top of each other. Make sure that seam is nested properly and lining up. So I'm just getting this block off the machine. I'm gonna go iron it real quick and we'll be right back. So this is what our block looks like. And fingers crossed, if we've done this right, it should be a 12 by 12 block. If not, it's going to be a smidge off because we pulled it or something like that. Which in this case, I pulled it just a hair here, literally just a hair here. So I'm going to lay this down on my cutting mat here. We're gonna take our rotary cutter and we're gonna just square this thing off. And essentially what happened is I either pulled or tugged a little bit and I gained a little bit of fabric there. But now we have our perfect 12.5 by 12.5 inch block. Now, this quilt behind me takes 4 across and 5 down. Obviously, if you buy 2 jelly rolls, you can make this into about a full size, 3 jelly rolls a queen, 4 jelly rolls a king. But as you've seen, this is a super fun, fast, easy block to make. Now I'm gonna make up a bunch more of these and show you the quilt. So I went ahead and made up a couple more blocks here and put it all together into my quilt top. Let me show you what it looks like. This is a fun, fast, easy project to make, and honestly, 30s make anything look like classic. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take this across the building to our in-house laundry to have it finished. As always, guys, we have instruction on how to make this project down in the description below. Go ahead and print that off. And also, if you're interested in these quilt kits, go ahead and check out the link down there. You can check these out at sewyeahquilting.com. Lastly, just a couple reminders. Check us out on our live streams on Tuesdays and Saturdays for our Tuesday night Newstash and our Saturday night Destash. They start at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, okay? Come check us out there. My name's Teancum, teaching you how to sew like a pro. We'll see you here next week at Sew Yeah Quilting.